Okay, we were in the middle of doing this problem when I had to start a new video. All right, so we had rewritten the equation in the correct form. Okay, so -1/2 times x minus 0 squared plus 1. We had gotten h, we had gotten k. We said that it's negative, so this graph will be opening down. And we have a 1/2 here, which tells me not only is it opening down, but it is being compressed by 1/2. Okay, so my vertex is h comma k, so it's 0, 1. My axis of symmetry is x equals h, so h is 0. So when I plot 0, 1 and draw my axis of symmetry in, okay, so I know it's going to be opening down, so it will look like this somewhat. So now what my job is to take my original parent function, and these were the points we came up with. Remember, I plugged in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and I came up with these coordinates. So now I have to follow my directions over here. I need to do my horizontal shift if I have one. Okay, I want you to notice I have no horizontal shift. Now I need to stretch or compress my distances from my x-axis. So this has a distance of 1. So I'm gonna cut it in half, right? Because my a value is 1/2. So 1 times 1/2 is 1/2. So my graph now looks like this. This has a distance of 1, so I'm going to cut that in half as well. The next one has a distance of 4. That's 4. So when I cut it in half, it's only 2. Okay, the next one has a distance of 4. So when I cut it in half, it's only 2. All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3. Oh gosh, why did I erase them? Okay, so they look like this. Sorry. All right, so they look like this. Now it says I have to do the reflection if I have a reflection. So I do have a reflection. I have this negative out here in front. It opens down. So I look at the distance my dots are from the x-axis and I mirror them on the other side of the x-axis. So this dot here is 2 above the x-axis, so I'm going to bring it down to 2 below. This dot here is 2 above, so I'm going to go 2 below. This dot here is only 1/2 above, so I'm going to go 1/2 below. And then this dot here is only 1/2 above, so I'm only going to go 1/2 below. And my last is my vertical shift. Well, there I go with my eraser on. My vertical shift is 1, so I'm moving all of these dots up by 1. So this one will go up to here. This one will go back to where it originally was, and this one is being moved up by 1. I'm going to erase all of these dots that are underneath, although, yeah, I just erased that. All right, so now I have my parabola and what it looks like, and you can see that the dashed line that I drew in cuts my parabola in half, and that the left side mirrors the right side. All right, so what does our homework look like? We don't really have to graph in our homework. I thought that was a good exercise so you understand what the axis of symmetry is. But we are going to, in the first examples, find the axis of symmetry. So we have to write these equations in our generic form, plus or minus with an a value in front, plus k. Here's my squared value. I know I have a positive 1 out in front. Here's my squared value here. So I'm not subtracting anything from the x before I square it, so I'm really subtracting the 0. And I'm not adding anything afterwards, so I'm adding a 0 as well. So h equals 0 and k equals 0. I only have to find my axis of symmetry. So my axis of symmetry, I like to abbreviate it like AOS so I don't have to write it all out. My axis of symmetry is an equation of a line, and that equation is x equals h, and h here is 0. So let's do the same thing here. H of x equals plus or minus a times x minus h squared plus k. I have a nice negative 1 out in front. Here's my squared term, and I'm adding something to it instead of subtracting that, so I'm going to turn that into a minus a negative, and then I'm not adding anything afterwards, so my k value is 0. So h equals negative 2, right? This is h right here. K equals 0. So my axis of symmetry has an equation of x equals h, or x equals negative 2. Okay, so how about this example? Plus or minus a x minus h squared minus plus k, plus k. Okay, we have a nice negative 1 out in front. My squared term here has nothing being subtracted from it, so it's a 0 on the inside of my parentheses. This is a minus 9, but I need to turn it into a plus, so it's a plus negative 9. So my h value is, that's h, this is k. H is 0, k is negative 9, so my axis of symmetry has the equation x equals 0. All right, so now let's do this one. H of x equals plus or minus a x minus h squared plus k. All right, this has a nice positive 1 in front of it. Here is my squared term, and we'll compare it against that. There's nothing being subtracted from it before it's being squared, so it's a minus 0. I'm adding a 1 at the end. So this is h and this is k. H equals 0, k equals 1. So my axis of symmetry has an equation of x equals h, or x equals 0. All right, so for this one, it is plus or minus a x minus h squared plus k. All right, I see that I have a positive 1 out in front. My squared term, I'm subtracting 6, so my signs match up. This matches up with this, so we're good. My sign matches up here too. It's a plus, and that's a plus. This is my h value, that's my k value. H equals 6, k equals 37. So my axis of symmetry has an equation x equals 6. Okay, last example for this set. H equals plus or minus a x minus h squared plus k. There's my negative 1. Here's my squared value. What do I need? This is a plus, but I need a minus, so I'm going to change that to a minus minus. That's a plus 1, and I need a plus, so I just added here. Here's my h, here's my k. H equals negative 25, k equals 1, so my axis of symmetry has an equation of x equals negative 25. So here, what does it say here? It says, find the stretch or compress factor, if there is one, the equation of the axis of symmetry, and the vertex. So let's make sure that we're in the correct form. Plus or minus a x minus h squared plus k. So the number in front is a negative 2. Here's my squared term. I notice that I need a minus instead of a plus, so I'm going to change that into a subtraction. Here I have a plus on the outside, so that's going to be a +1. This is h, this is k. Let's see, this right here is my a value. Okay, that's my a value. So a is greater, the absolute value of a is greater than 1. So I have a stretch by 2. H equals -25, k equals 1. So my vertex is h comma k. And my axis of symmetry is x equals h, or -25. All right, so I have all of my answers here. So let's do the next example. I have, let's make sure it's in the right form. X minus h squared plus k, and this really was supposed to be an a. So it looks like it's in the right form here. I have a +1/2. Here's my squared term, Okay, I have a subtraction, so that looks good. I'm adding at the end a +37, so that's h, and this is k. And here's a right there. A equals 1/2. Since 1/2 is between 0 and 1, this is a compress by 1/2. My vertex is h comma k. H equals 6, k equals 37. So 6 comma 37. And my axis of symmetry is x equals h, or x equals 6. All right, so let's check this one out. Is it in the right form for us to start? Plus or minus a, x minus h squared plus k. It looks like we need to fix something. That is a -1. Okay, so the squared term right here needs a subtraction in the middle, so I'm going to subtract a negative. And we're supposed to add something at the end, a +7. So this is h and this is k, so h equals -11, k equals 7. That is a. So a equals 1. Well, if the absolute value of a equals 1, then there is no stretch or compress. So there is no stretch or compress for this one. My vertex is h comma k, -11 comma 7, and my axis of symmetry is x equals h, or x equals -11. Okay, I have 2 more examples and then we're done. So let's see, this doesn't look anything like my form here. So let's see if we can make it look alike. So the number in front of my squared term is a +7. My squared term has nothing being subtracted from x, so I need to subtract a 0. I have nothing being added at the end, so I need to add the 0. H and k, so h equals 0 and k equals 0. My a value is 7. So the absolute value of a is greater than 1, so this is a stretch by 7. My vertex is h comma k, so it's 0, 0. And my axis of symmetry is x equals h, or x equals 0 in this case. Last example. We're going to have to skip this last one. I think we've done plenty. So this is a +7, or a times x minus h squared plus k. Looks like we have a -7 in front. Nothing's being subtracted from x before we square it, so we'll subtract a 0. We're adding a 2 at the end, so this is h and k. H equals 0, k equals 2. A is 7, So this is a stretch by